Hi, welcome to the Pocket Pages book that we're making with pages with, guess what, pockets in it. So lots of different pockets going on here, some with fastenings, some without, and we've done pretty much, we're going through page by page. We've done most of the pages now, we're really just coming to the end. We've just got this one on the inside cover to make here, and so this one here has got these little pockets which I thought would be good for pencils or other sorts of tools or long and skinny things, and a little flap over just to keep things in place when the book is all closed up. So I've got another sample up here, different colours, just to give you an idea of the way things can look in different colours. And so I'll just go through what we're doing here. So if you've already signed up and have the pattern from GourmetQuilter.com, it's a downloadable pattern for the Pocket Pages book, then you will have pages like this. This shows you all the measurements for cutting. It tells you how to put things together, and I'm just here to show you. Also full-size patterns where needed. So there's a flap over the pockets this time to just cover over, and so I've actually gone ahead and made the flap because we've done flaps before. The only difference with this one is it's got slightly curved corners, and so when we do the corner, we just need to do some little snips into the corner to allow that fabric to move on the corner. Otherwise it's just half the side of it. You can trace that on. I've got my trusty light box that I use for things like that. So everything is there that you need. I've made the flap already, and now we have to make this little pocket to put our little tools or whatever we're going to put in there. So I've gone ahead and I've actually folded it. It was a larger piece of fabric, so I folded it in half. I've stitched along, this is now the top edge along the fold. I've done a couple of rows of top stitching, and I've made some pencil markings on it. Again, all the measurements are in the pattern for where we're going to stitch for our pocket dividers. And I've also, on my background here, I've got some stiffening on the back. I've also marked a line across where the top of the pocket will sit. And I've got some markings which are slightly different to these ones on here, because we want the pockets to have a little bit of fullness to them so that you can put thicker things like pencils or something like that in there. So I've gone ahead, marked all my dividers on my actual pocket piece. I've marked a top line and some dividing lines at the top and also at the bottom so that we can match the lines top and bottom, because it helps a lot so that things don't go wonky all over the place. So really all that now needs to be done, and we have done this before with other pockets, the technique is the same, is to start stitching our pocket on right on those lines. So I like to start in the center and then work out. So the center line is really straightforward. So we'll just do that quickly, and then I'll show you as well the next one so that you get the hang of how all that goes. So a little back stitch at the beginning. And then I'm just stitching, I'm making sure that my line that I'm stitching on is lining up with the mark I made at the bottom of the page. And then just stitching that line through the stiffening as well, so it's nice and firm. And so then the next line doesn't line up just laying flat. We need to bring it in a bit so that it's got a little bit of a fullness there, and also at the bottom, and that's why we want to mark them top and bottom so that we can do that. So you could pop a couple of pins or clips or something in if you wanted to, or you can just hold it like I am and stitch the next line. And all of these little lines that need stitching are all done exactly the same way now. So I'll go ahead and get mine all stitched and come back and show you how we do the next bit. So I've gone ahead and I've sewn all my dividers, and I've got this wonderful looking little channels sitting there. So what we need to do now is get the bottom of that stitched as well. I've also gone ahead and I've done my basting down the two sides, so that's within the seam allowance area. We will be bringing our seam when we join it all up in close to the white stiffening, so just to hold them in place so that they're not flapping. And we also need to make that edge one into one of our little pockets. So what I'm going to do now is simply come along, so allowing for that little edge there, the extra seam allowance, is just fold that over, and I'm going to stitch along the bottom edge here. We should have about a 1/2 inch allowance here, but I'm just going to stitch about 3/8 of an inch, so not right up close, but a little bit more than the 1/4 inch, so that things are sitting well for when we want to do the actual seam making the pages up. So I'm just going to go along, and you could pin them first if you wanted to, although there's not a huge amount of excess there, so you can really just tuck them over as you go, more or less in the middle of each of the little spaces that's there. So I'll just start sewing that so that you can see how that all works. So as I said, more than 1/4 of an inch, not as much as 1/2 an inch. And just take that little pleat in as you go. And you can go all the way along doing that. And that gives us these nice little pockets. So I'll show you when I get to the other end. So I finished off sewing my little pleats in the bottom there. Everything's sitting quite nicely. Everything's ready. Even my scissors can hide in these little pockets. Look at that, how that is pretty amazing that they will just slide in there and you can't even see them. So that's looking great. They will flatten down, of course, once the book's sort of flattening against things. So really all that needs doing, that's all that we need to do now, because when we sew that into our page, that will all be just as we want it. And all we need to do now is baste our flap to the top. So it's in narrower. Just remember when you're sewing these pages in to make sure that your flap, there's a couple of them in the book, are sitting within the seam, so that when you join the pages and things, you don't catch the flap in the corner. This one's okay because it comes in. There's another one that we've done that's wider. So sometimes I pin my flaps in just to make sure that they can't get caught in my seams when I'm making things up. So I don't think you need to see me sew that on. It's the same as this. It's just a basting across the top to hold it in place. And so that's the inside back cover. And now we've done all the main sort of pockets and pages, so we're going to start putting that book together. So I will see you again shortly.